When I was 13, I vividly recall Thanksgiving that year. We were hosting it at our house, expecting guests in the afternoon. The night before, my parents stayed up late preparing food while my sister and I assisted in cleaning the house. We had a 2-story house, and all the bedrooms were upstairs. Downstairs was the main living room, the kitchen, dining room, and a few others. Our house was sort of big, and it was a good place to have a bunch of people over. I remember that before going to bed, my parents mentioned how they had to get up early to get more foods ready for the day. After we had all gone to bed, and the next morning came, I was woken up by my mom. She told me that both her and my dad were going to go to the store quick to buy a couple of last-minute ingredients that they hadn't realized they were out of. I was really groggy for my sleep, and being interrupted, it must have been like 7 a.m. or so. I remember my mom saying she just wanted to let me know, and they would be back soon. Then she left. I instantly turned over and fell back asleep. Probably like 30 minutes later or so, my alarm went off and I woke up. I was a little bit more rested and awake now. I got out of bed and into the hallway to use the bathroom. When I did, I noticed that my sister's bedroom door was open and she didn't appear to be inside of it. I could sort of hear the TV playing downstairs and I figured that she was already up. I used the bathroom and then went downstairs. It was clean and the sunlight lit up most of the space. In the living room, the TV was playing, and on the Thanksgiving Day parade, I looked around for my sister, but she was nowhere to be seen. I went into the kitchen, but she wasn't there either. I guess maybe she had gone with my parents to the store, and I returned to the living room towards the couch. Then I heard a noise. It sounded like a whisper. I got really startled, and then I heard it again. It was my sister's voice, and it sounded like she was behind the couch. I looked behind it and saw her. She was all crouched up into almost a ball and looked terrified. She just whispered to me that there was a man in the house and told me to hide. I quickly went behind a sort of lazy boy chair that was next to the couch in the living room. I whispered to my sister, asking where the man was. She said she didn't know, but when she came downstairs, she saw a guy in the kitchen. Just then, we both heard a noise. It was coming from the hallway near the front door. I looked out from behind the chair I was hiding behind, and I saw a guy walking into the living room. He was tall and wore a black sweatshirt. He also had on a hat, but I didn't get a good look at his face. I quickly, but quietly tried to move back behind the chair so that the guy couldn't see me. I heard him walk around the living room, and the footsteps got closer. They came within maybe 15 feet of where my sister and I were hiding. I was terrified, and my heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. It's a good thing the TV was playing, or I feel like the man would have definitely heard us. I heard him walk farther away, seemingly into the kitchen. The kitchen was farther away from the front door. I felt like maybe my sister and I could get away if the man was in there. I whispered to my sister and told her to follow me. We counted to 3, and then got out and ran as fast and also as quietly as we could to the front door. The area the man was in the kitchen was sort of blocked off from seeing us. We didn't look back to see if he heard us or saw us. When we made it to the front door, I unlocked it and opened it as fast as I could. Then, we both rushed out the door and into the driveway. Right after we got outside, we saw our parents' car driving down the street and pulling in. It was great to see, and we both ran out to them. They barely had a chance to get in the driveway and seemed really confused to see us running out of the house. We got inside the back seats of the car and told them about seeing a guy inside the house. They ended up calling the police from the car as we sat in the driveway. We drove down the street a little ways because my sister didn't feel safe even being in the driveway. The police showed up pretty quickly. When they did, they entered the house. After about 10 minutes, they came back, bringing the man along with them. It was a huge relief to see that he was caught. Apparently, they found him hiding upstairs in my bedroom closet. That part of it really freaked me out. I'm so glad that I got up when I did. I guess when my parents left, they forgot to lock the door that led from the garage to the house, because the front door was locked when I went outside, and the door to the garage wasn't. but how the guy got inside our garage in the first place, we never really found out. My father has consistently been overly kind, almost like a pushover. Let me begin the story with that. I mention it with purpose. We reside in uptown Chicago. With a relatively small family, our Thanksgiving and Christmas gatherings typically involve fewer than 6 people. This was Thanksgiving night of last year, 2019. Dinner was almost done already. My dad was picking up some last-minute foods like stuffing and cranberry sauce at the corner store since we didn't have any. My mom and I started setting the table while my brother and grandparents sat at the table. He brought someone along with him. There was this middle-aged, dirty-looking man in a green ripped t-shirt and black pants. He looked homeless. My dad introduced the man as Stefan and said he would be joining us for dinner tonight. My brother and I exchanged surprised, uncomfortable looks. Then, my mom and I did the same. As my dad started preparing the stuffing, he was telling us how he met Stefan alone in the cold streets and said we as a Christian family should do the right thing and invite him into dinner, as no one should be alone on Thanksgiving. My grandma invited the man to sit with us. I could tell my mom wasn't comfortable with this as she whispered stuff in my dad's ear. Too late now, though. The man was already seated at the table. Good thing I didn't sit next to him because I could smell his clothes from across the table. I didn't understand what my dad was thinking with this. When all the food was finally on the table, everyone sat down and we did our prayer. My brother and grandma attempted to hold hands with Stefan, but he didn't grab their hands back. I low-key watched him as we all prayed, and he just sat there. His eyes bulgingly wide, his mouth not moving. He just sat there like he didn't want to be there. After the prayer, we all began to eat, and at least 3 of my family members tried talking to him at some point. He didn't seem friendly at all, though. His responses were very dry and one-wordish. Made the dinner a little uncomfortable. I didn't know what my dad saw on this man or why he felt comfortable bringing him into our home. I kept trying to help the needy, but there was another way to do it than this. He helped himself to some food, but even the way he ate was really messy. Like his fingers were really greasy. Some food got in his hair. It wasn't pleasant to watch. Now you may think I'm just trash-talking a homeless person, so let's move past that. Eventually, Stefan said, "Excuse me, I gotta go to the bathroom." My dad pointed him in the direction of the bathroom, which was down the half-flight of stairs down the hall to the left. He got up, not saying thank you, and followed the directions. Once we were sure he was out of earshot, my mom and grandparents started asking questions like, what the hell is wrong with my dad bringing that man in here? My dad whispered that he felt terrible and wanted to do something right. My mom questioned how we were going to get him out of here now. My dad insisted that we were being good people, though, and that we'd agree eventually. We continued eating, so my brother asked, "Where is he? He's been gone for a while." We all agreed it was strange, so my dad went down the stairs to the bathroom to look. He came back up a few seconds later, saying he wasn't in the bathroom. My grandmas looked very distressed as my grandpa started cursing in Italian. My brother, my dad, and I started checking the whole apartment. My dad was calling Stefan's name the whole time. We checked all the bedrooms, all the closets. Somehow, he wasn't anywhere. However, the window in my parents' room was open, enough for someone to climb through. So we assumed the obvious. My mom came in yelling at my dad that this is what happens for him being stupid and letting a potentially dangerous person into our home. We all had to agree, sadly. My dad closed the window, and we tried to go about the rest of our dinner normally. But of course, the whole time we talked about the bizarre encounter. After dinner, we had dessert. Then, eventually, my grandparents left. The 4 of us cleaned up the table and dishes, and a couple hours later, everyone dispersed to their rooms for bed. I'm being very loose with the time frame because this was almost a year ago, but I believe it was another hour later that I finally turned off my TV for bed. The silence in the room allowed me to hear it, the breathing. I heard it in my room, not my breathing. I was frozen stiff. I didn't even want to move or sit up. I didn't know where exactly in the room it was coming from. I just looked for the door to my room, trying to sum up the courage to run. I heard the faintest shuffling sounds, like of the fabric of a jacket, and I heard, almost in my ears, and a hand pressed down on my neck. That's when the scream I'd been building up exploded out of my mouth as I literally sprang out from the bed and into the hall calling for my dad. Everyone came out from their rooms and looked down the hall toward my room when I set Stefan's in there. Shockingly, Stefan stepped out from my room, looked at us, and walked out the front door as my dad yelled at him to get out. Of course, without getting physical because he's a big softy. Stefan was long gone by the time police finally showed up. The police said the important thing was that he left and none of us were hurt, and now just to make sure to lock the door and windows. They took our description of Stefan and they left. I like to think my dad learned his lesson from that. You can't trust everyone you meet.